I was born in Dak Lak, which is a very mountainous area. We grow a lot of coffees and peppers up there, and the educational system in Dak Lak is very poor at that time. There's not really much facility in the school. The ground is not like cement ground or anything. It's just very rough and very rocky at that time. And there's no real bathroom in there as well. The bathroom is made out of a steel coil looking thing. It's like a steel leaf like this, and they wrap it around in big enough surfaces so that people can just dig a hole in there and it's just doing their thing in there. So it's just so crazy. Like at that time, it was very poor facility.
Thank you for listening to this episode of a Vietnam podcast with me, your host, Niall Mackay. I started this podcast in 2019 to share stories of people connected to Vietnam, and I cannot believe that we are now in season 11 of a Vietnam podcast. That's absolutely crazy. Something I started as a hobby in my front room is now my full-time business with 7 Million Bikes podcast, and I still get to chat to incredible people from all over the world, all connected to Vietnam. Now, don't forget, we have a Patreon community as well. So if you want to become a Bop Sao Day, and if you love the theme tune just like everyone else, you'll know where that comes from. It's also one of the best foods in Vietnam is Bop Sao, which I thought for the longest time was called Bop Sao Day. But day means like now, right? Or here. Yeah, I thought for about 3 years it was called Bop Sao Day. If you want to become a Bop Sao Dayer on our Patreon community, then go to the show notes. We are building a community on there of people who have as much passion for Vietnam and a Vietnam podcast as I do and everyone else who is on there. So we can have chats on there. You're going to get bonus episodes before everyone else. You get content before everyone else. And if you're in Saigon, we're going to do meetups, like bar crawls. We did a pub crawl recently, which you can go back and watch if you haven't already or listen to it. That was a fun day with a lot of supporters of a Vietnam podcast. So that was really cool. So go check out the show notes, become a Bop Sao Dayer on Patreon and join the Vietnam podcast community. That will be amazing. Now, in this episode, I'm really excited to talk to this guest. He is the youngest ever guest on a Vietnam podcast. He is actually a personal trainer. He's my personal trainer, and we've been working together for over a year. And through that time, I've got to know his story, and it's super interesting, and it's very, very similar to a lot of young people in Vietnam. And it makes me realize how different it is to my story and many people from where I'm from, how different it is growing up in Vietnam to the rest of the world, and what makes it such a special country and the people so special as well, which is something I hate. I was talking to somebody recently and he's like, oh, Vietnamese people are so amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are many amazing Vietnamese people, but there are also many other amazing people in every other country in the world. And I just hate that stereotype when you dilute a whole population of 90 million down to they're all amazing people. I've not met all of them. Most of them are pretty nice and pretty awesome, but it's not the same. They're not all the same person. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. My guest today was brought up in Dak Lak, moved to the central region and came back to start his own business in Saigon. I'm excited to introduce my guest today is Thinh Dang. Thank you very much for joining us on a Vietnam podcast.
Thanks for inviting me to the show. I'm super excited. This is the first time ever I have ever been into a podcast as well. So yeah, I hope we're going to have a really great conversation.
Nice. I'm always excited to pop somebody's podcast cherry. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's a phrase. Do you know that one? I too, I'm showing my age here.
Pop cherry.
Pop your cherry.
It's like cherries on top. Like
someone can write in and you can tell Thinh what that means. I don't think that's a language barrier. I think that's an age barrier because as we've already mentioned, you are the youngest ever guest on a Vietnam podcast. How old are you?
I was 24 and I was born in 2000.
2000. So you were born in a different millennium to me. I can feel. Jeez. I mean, I remember, so I worked in a summer camp from like 2003 to 2007. And I clearly remember the first time we had a camper being registered by the parents to come to the camp that year. So I think the minimum age was 6 years old. So it would have been 2006. And I remember somebody holding up the form and being like, oh my God, this camper was born in 2000. That was a watershed moment for me. And now here you are, a fully grown adult living in the world that was born in a different millennium to me. That's crazy. So You're Gen Z. Oh my goodness, I think you might be the first Gen Z I've had on the podcast as well. Maybe some others, I'm not sure. I didn't ask them all what generation they were. But one of the things that I've found fascinating from the more and more that we've spoken, so we've been working out together for the past year or so, is the background of where you came from. So tell me, where were you brought up? What was it like?
Yeah, so I was born in Dak Lak, which is, for you guys don't know, Dak Lak is a very mountainous area. We grow a lot of coffees and peppers up there. And yeah, the thing about the main reason why my parents want to send me to Da Nang, I think Neil has already referred this to you guys as well, is because educational system in Dak Lak is very poor at that time. And there is a lot of minor ethnicities in there, so everything is just not very good for studying in the long terms. And that's the reason why my parents decide to send me to Da Nang. And the first thing when they do is to find an English center for me to learn there. And the English center was learned at that time. At that time, I was 8 years old, right? So I was learned there. At the center is called Việt Mỹ, which is the shorter name is VUS English Centers. And I think I was the first member in my family as well to ever learn and speak English to foreigners at that time, which is so cool.
What was the education system like in Dak Lak? Why was it so bad that your parents sent you away?
I'll tell you stories because when I was in my first grade, which means I was 7 years old, and I was studying in a primary school in there. And I think the school, the thing is that we live with minor ethnicity in Vietnam, right? So then we also study in the same environment with them. There's not really much facility in the school. The ground, I think it's just it's not like cement ground or anything. It's just very rough and very rocky at that time. And there's no real bathroom in there as well. The bathroom is made out of, it's like a steel coil looking thing. It's like a steel leaf like this, and then wrap it around in a very big enough surfaces so that people can just dig a hole in there and it's just doing their thing in there. So it's just so crazy. Like, I think things already changed there, but at that time it was just like 12 years ago or something. Yeah, at that time it was very poor facility. And
I mean, so this is what fascinates me as a foreigner and the difference in Vietnam, right? Because I only know Vietnam, or Saigon. I keep saying Vietnam, but I mean, I spend 99% of my time in Saigon. Saigon is a big, bustling, busy city, metropolitan. There's going to be a metro one day. It's coming soon, though. The metro is coming soon. There's highways, there's cars, there's big buildings, there's Muji, what do you call it? Zara, Mango, H&M. Like, it has everything here, right? And so on the face of it, when you see Saigon and the cars as well, you just see this modern city. But obviously underneath it, in Saigon, you go to areas like District 4 or Carve. Like, it's completely different to downtown Saigon, obviously. But what is fascinating is, especially in Vietnam, it is still 10, 20, maybe 30 years behind the rest of the world. And that becomes really apparent with stories like yourself. Like, that's crazy. You're talking about not having a proper toilet in your school in like 2005, 2006, right? When you were going there. Like, that to me, I was going to school from when I went to school when I was 5 years old was 1987. And so that's when you really start to realize, like, 1987 versus 2004, I can't even do the math. It's like 20 years nearly, right? And so it's crazy that people like yourself have come from that background. And Vietnam, though, is progressing quicker than anything you can imagine. And it's progressing so quickly, like you said, that school probably doesn't exist. But I know it does exist. Like, I've been to the Mekong Delta. I've helped fund in my old job, like the rebuilding of a school. And that was only 4 years ago. And there's still many schools like that with holes in the wall, mold on the side and things like this. So that's why in particular, like when we've obviously spoken a lot, I was like, I want to share your story on a Vietnam podcast because it is I think maybe even you think, why is this an interesting story to share? Maybe not. Maybe you think it is a great story. But I personally think because it's so different to where I've come from, you're so much younger than me, but your background and where you've come from to get to where you are today is just so different and so incredible. So apart from the school having a hole for a bathroom, what else was it like growing up in Dak Lak, this mountainous region? You mentioned your parents worked really hard. What did they do? What was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, so basically, like I already mentioned before, like we grow in coffee and we grow in peppers. So most of them are coming from farming, right? So my parents, one of the biggest reason why they want to send me to another city to study is because they are so busy at their work. Like they started their work at 4:30 a.m. until 11 p.m.
And that's common for people in that region?
I don't think so. I don't think it's common. I don't think it's common at all. Because my parents, not only they work on the farm, but they also have some transportation business as well. So yeah, they work on like 2 jobs at a time, and it was tough at that time. And they found that they didn't give me enough, attentions at that time. I barely have any meals with them. So when I go to school, right, my aunt will get me and her son to go to her homes, and then we're gonna have lunch there, and sometimes we have dinner there, and sometimes I can have sleep at their home as well. And about 11 or 11:30, my parents just gonna go to my aunt's house and knock on their door and say, "Hey, time to go home, Thinh." That's it.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't think it's very common in Vietnam, in my areas, for people to work at that intensity. And yeah, it was tough, but I know that my parents have done their best to grow me up and then building a very happy and full of love family. I'm very proud of my family, actually.
Now that's beautiful, and it reminds me of something. I spoke to Suzanne Thi Hien Hook, who she was an orphan from during the war. She was found under a bush and then adopted by a family in the UK. And it was celebrated as this amazing thing that she had been adopted and saved by this British family. But it turned out they were massively abusive and made her life hell. And in the podcast, she said something that's lived with me to this day, and I've repeated it before as well. She said, "I never knew what it felt like to be loved." And I had a tough upbringing. My parents divorced. We had times where we didn't have money, but we still had a good upbringing. So it's not like hugely traumatic, anything like that, but it's a tough upbringing. But I never ever felt unloved. And that really sat with me. I was like, wow, I do not know what that felt like. Like when she described that, to feel unloved because she was treated so horribly. I was like, no matter any hardship that I went through in my life, I never ever once felt unloved. And that sounds like something really similar to you as well, right? To grow up in a family where you just feel that love is something that not everyone gets. So that's really, really beautiful to hear. And your parents obviously have created a super successful family because I know you. So how many brothers and sisters do you have? And then what was your parents' solution then to never being there but working so hard?
So yeah, we have 4 siblings in total, including me. So we have 2 sisters, 1 brother, and me. So the story, the plan is that my older sister get into the university in Da Nang, right? So that she's the first one, make the first move to go to Da Nang. And the second one also, like, very coincidence, she also get a university in Da Nang as well. So my parents are, yeah, Da Nang is a very cool city as well. Got beach there. It's very nice. And it's not as crowded as Saigon. And then it's very safe for, 2 little girls in the middle of cities. So they decided to just send me and then my brother at the same time so that they can take care. My sister can take care of both of us. And my sister, she played a crucial role at that time, which means that the thing that my parents cannot physically do, which is like cooking, look after me, show me how to do the math, show me how to write the words so they can do the homework. She gonna be in charge of doing so that my parents' main focus is to make money. That's it. So she's like my left hand for my parents. I love her so much. If she watching the podcast right now, I love you. Okay.
But this you've missed a crucial point here, which I think is the most incredible part of this story. So not only was your sister in university trying to get a degree, which I know you get a lot of free time when you're a student, but it's hard work as well. You got to get a degree. Then you're told to look after someone. How old were you when you got sent to Da Nang to live with your sister who's studying in university?
So I was 8 years old at that time.
And your brother?
And my brother was 14 years old at that time. So one was primary school, one was in middle school.
And then your mom and dad are like, yo, can you just look after the kids for me?
Exactly. So the thing is that she not only take care of me, she have to take care of my brother as well, because he still go to school. And he also, for somewhat reason, she can do all the homework from math to literature to English to chemistry for my brother as well. It's just mad crazy. Like, and then when I grow up and when I was at the same age with my sister, when she got to university, which is like 19 or 20 or something, I found out how can she manage to do all that things. Like, I barely finished my deadline. I barely finished my homework before the deadline, and then she managed to do all of that things and finish the deadline on time, and she graduated and got her degrees. So,
I mean, I think about my university life, which for many people is very similar. It's just lots of alcohol and partying and irresponsibility and going to gigs. And I think it's just an incredible story that not only did your parents work their ass off, work so hard, because obviously they had to fund. They were obviously sending money to your sister, I imagine, to feed you, to educate you, and for her as well.
That's right. That's true. That's true.
So they're making sure that you guys are financially looked after, right?
Yeah, that's right.
By working their ass off.
That's right.
Then your sister has to look after 2 children and essentially bring you up.
That's just amazing. That I don't know how, but still, that's why she's the oldest one, and she's the one that got respected the most in the family. So like, not because she's the oldest one, but what she had done to us, and then the responsibility that she gonna have, it's just crazy. It's amazing.
So what was it like then growing up in Da Nang, moving from a mountainous region, countryside, now you're in the big city, which Da Nang is a relatively big city. What was that like?
I think the first experience is that, first of all, I don't really, there's no smartphone at that time. It's still that some people have it.
I was going to say, you're so young, they probably did have smartphones.
They got a smartphone though.
You were growing up, you were brought up with Wi-Fi?
iPhone. No, there's no Wi-Fi up there. There's no Wi-Fi. It's like they got internet at that time. But it's like a modem. Yeah, modem. I think I haven't know much about Da Nang except they got beach. That's it.
Yeah.
And they got and I hear a lot of when I ask my brother when I know I will go to Da Nang, and then at that night I talked to my brother. I was like, how it feels to live in Da Nang, because my brother was moved to Da Nang for about a couple months before me. Okay, so I talked to him and say how was it going in Da Nang, and he was like, yeah, it's alright. Got beach and you got supermarket up there, which is something that so basic. And then I kind of fascinated. Whoa, supermarket at that time, and they got like bánh tiêu. You know bánh tiêu? It's like a treat. I'll bring for you later on. But anyway. And they have a sausage up there. It's just very cool. A lot of food up there is very nice. Yeah, you should join. He's kind of hyped up a little bit. But when I first moved there, I feel excited when I first see everything is new. As a eyes of 8 years old, everything was new to you and it looks exciting. But when I've come home, and then I think I first arrived at my home in Da Nang was like 8 a.m. at that time. And then until like 6 p.m., I starting to cry. Like, because I miss my parents so much, and then it feels unfamiliar. And something about the TV shows that there's a TV in my room at that time, and then something about the television, the songs of that old films just rising up, and then it just create a very, lonely and sadness environment. It's just crying, and then just call my mom. So yeah, that's crazy. It's just very, I think it's not only is new, but it has new experience, and you can definitely have some new experience, new memories at that time as well. So, yeah.
When you were in school, did you meet similar people to yourself who'd come from like the countryside and moved to Da Nang for education?
Oh, absolutely not. Like I think my whole class went, oh, I was the head of that class. What is that called? It's like
We don't really have it in the UK. I think in America they have a prefect, maybe. I don't know. I don't actually know.
But he's like assistant of the main teachers.
Oh, that's such a Vietnamese thing, I think, from working in Vietnamese schools. Like, it's weird to be like the teacher's pet, like the teacher's like minion. I've had it in schools, and then there's like this one student who's like basically the narc of the class. They're like the ones that stand up. I remember being in a class and the student stood up and told the others to stop talking, and I was like, what is happening right now? Why did a student just tell the rest of them to shut up? And they all did it. They were all like, I was like, this is so weird. So is that who you were? You were a narc.
Yeah, I'm a narc. But anyway, so when...
How do you become the head student?
I don't know. The first year, the first time when I get to the class and the teacher just asked me, oh, that's weird because before the first day at school, okay, my parents, at that night, when we were having dinner together, and my parents just told me, hey, when she asks who's gonna be the what? The narc?
The narc, yeah. The head student.
You have to raise your hand up immediately. Like, so serious. Like, I don't know what the heck is the narc at that time as well.
No, the narc is like a bad term, not a good term. I think maybe you'll be confused. A narc means you're like a grass. Means like you'll... See, this is the thing I think so funny, right? Your parents are like, you need to be the head student. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. In the UK, you would get your ass beaten if you were like the head student. That's like not a cool position. Like if you were the head student, people would beat you up and make fun of you for being the teacher's pet. So this is why I found it so funny when this student would stand up and be like, hey, and tell them all to be quiet. And then they would all sit. And I was like, whoa, if that happened in the UK, like they would be getting stuff thrown at them and you'd be getting... You're going to get beaten up after class. Like, it would be really bad. But here it's a prestigious position, right?
It is. And I think the main reason why your parents want you to be in that position so much is because they believe that you will have a good grade and you'll be prioritized more.
Right.
For your teacher's going to prioritize more than other students. So,
gotcha.
So yeah, the first day I'd go to class. Same deal. Who's volunteered to do this position? Me. She, the moment she just say, who's going to be volunteer, not even say the positions, I know she's going to say that position. So I just raising her hands up. That's how it is.
In the UK, everyone would be like, no, I'm not doing it. No, you do it. I'm not doing it. You do it. That's hilarious. So what did you have to do as head student, apart from telling all your other fellow students? You're like, Miss Fung's talking, or you're like grassing on all the other students?
To be honest, yeah, that's a good question though, because I don't really know what my job is.
Like, who wants this job? Me. I don't know what it is, but I'll do it.
The title's kind of cool, I guess. Okay, yeah, so one particular thing is you have to keep your class discipline. I think my role, my teacher described it as you need to keep our class disciplined. But yeah, I know that role. She didn't... The fun thing is that she didn't explain to me how to do it. She just say, hey, keep the class discipline. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try. So I think one of the things that I try to do is just trying to scream at the top of my lungs every time they talking to each other, and then the teachers, they're writing board and trying to explain the lesson to the students, and then nobody listen. I just stand up and say, hey, what you doing?
Yeah, I've seen this happen when I taught in public school. It blew my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I think I write down the name of that guy. It's like a snitch, right?
That's what I'm saying. A narc, a snitch. Yeah, I've seen it in action. It's hilarious. And you were so proud to do this job, to be a snitch. You were the head snitch.
Nah, I don't think so, man. I think I give up.
So how many people were in your class?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question because I think it's different from place to place. So my class when I was in Dak Lak was like 30 students, and then divide. You used to teach at public school, they divide it into like 4 lines of students. And each line, they got about 10 students. Maybe if you got like 30 students, it got be, yeah.
Oh, like you mean line like the desks, right? Yeah. So you have like, I mean, I worked in classes where it was like 4 lines of 12. So that's like 48 students was pretty common.
That's much higher than us. Cause yeah, so when I was in Dak Lak was like 30 students, which is like 3 lines, 10. And when Da Nang, I have like 40 students at that time, and they divided into 4 lines as well. Yeah, which is something I found it kind of weird when I first come to Da Nang as well. It's just like minor things. Yeah, so many students, kind of overwhelmed.
That you had to control because you were the head snitch. Now, it was when you got to Da Nang that you learned English, right? And thank God, because I don't speak Vietnamese, so it's amazing. And I do say this, I just saw a clip from a video that we just put out where I am literally saying this, that one of the best things about living in Saigon is so many people speak English. And part of that's because I've taught thousands of kids, probably, helping them to speak English just so I don't have to learn Vietnamese. But your English level is incredible. And even every day when we're hanging out, working out, I'll maybe say some random word and I'll be like, oh, do you know what that means? And 9 times out of 10, you know what it means. I'm not being like condescending. It's normally because an English speaker might not even know this random word that I've used, and mostly you know it. And so I've always been impressed with that, your level of English, but not just how much English you know, which I really am blown away at. It's your pronunciation, because I know many people who have lived in the UK, have perfect English in terms of comprehension skills. You can have a conversation with them. They understand exactly what you're saying. But then when they speak, their grammar is horrible or their pronunciation is so bad that you can barely understand a word that they say, whereas your pronunciation is almost flawless. So how did you learn English so well, and how do you continue to develop your English?
Yeah, I started to learn English when I was 8 years old. The first thing that my parents were trying to do is to just find a good English center for me to learn.
Oh yeah, you went to VUS, right?
Yeah, that's right, VUS. And yeah, I just started to speak with foreigners at a very young age, which is something is just, young kid, when they start to learn something, they're going to learn very fast, because like they're like a wide blank space, right? Everything you write on them is going to be there. So yeah, I think one of the biggest advantages is that I got time. I learned at a very young age. And the second thing is I kind of into the Western culture as well, because I love, food that from Western countries like Mexican. I love Italian food like pizza and all that. And I also enjoy listening to music that from Western. But one thing I haven't told you, so we don't actually, when I come to Da Nang, right, there's some television show that it doesn't have in Dak Lak. We do have a TV and we have TV shows up there, but it just doesn't have that much varieties up there. And then when I just first moved to Da Nang, I kind of fascinating how much you can watch up there. Like, I think it was like MTV or something at that time. The first song that I keep myself, just subscribe to MTV every single day is Die Young from Kesha. She's so hot at that time, and the music was fire at that time. And that's the first thing I learned. I listened to a lot of, Western music, and the older I get, I think in recent years, I started listening to some TV shows like James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel's, and then podcast, it just pops up, and then I just listen to it more. I love Joe Rogan, the Vietnam podcast as well.
Don't lie, it's alright, don't lie. But I have a question though, because I think in Vietnam especially, and I think many other Southeast Asian countries, there's a big onus on having foreign English teachers, like native speaking English teachers, and it leads to a bit of a stereotype that I don't know if you're aware of, but I think it definitely used to happen, but not so much now, but a stereotype that any white person basically can show up in a country like Vietnam and they'll get hired to be an English teacher because parents don't really care about qualifications. I don't think it's true now. Maybe it is, but they just want a foreign teacher. They want a white face. And I don't think that's true. I mean, the school I worked at, ILA, had a really diverse teachers from all over the world, all different backgrounds, colors, creeds, races. And that was never, in my experience, something that was prioritized as to the color of the person's skin, but I do know it happened where black people wouldn't get hired because they wanted like the white, tall, Scandinavian-looking person. How true do you think that is? And also, it sounds from your experience that it actually was, though, really important to learn from a foreigner. Do you think that really helped your English that much?
Yeah, I heard a lot of people when they say things about, expat. In Vietnamese word, they call Tây Ba Lô.
Thai ba lo, I've heard that. So Thai is Western. What's ba lo again? Backpacker?
Yes, like a backpack.
Yeah, Thai ba lo, Western backpacker, right? Which is like not complimentary, is it?
It is. And then I think I heard at that age, when I was very young, I heard a lot of people say it about that thing as well. They say, maybe, some English centers, they trying to make money and then they're just trying to hire a random guy in there. I heard a lot of stories about it as well. But you know what? That's how I don't really care, because the reason why I'm good at English right now is because I'm speaking to foreigners as much as I could. So who cares where you come from, right? And most of the teachers that I learn with is very nice to me. They're very friendly, and I have that impressions about Western people is that they are very friendly to kid, and yeah, so why would you care about it, right?
As a kid, you didn't care where they were from.
Yeah, that's right. As a kid, I see, Western people, I was like, hey, that's cool. Yeah, so who cares?
And what do you think parents' opinions are these days of Thai ba lo or Westerners? Is it higher or lower?
To be honest, I haven't asked this question yet. I haven't heard of a lot of people talk about this anymore, because it's not very, the reason why people talk about it years before so much, because at that time, English centers learning with foreigners is like a top trend. And then, yeah, so that those incidents, those dramas about, the CEO just trying to hire as much expats as much as possible, don't really care about certifications. Yeah, at that time, it was learning English is a trend. So the chance of people talking about expat is a lot more. But right now, people don't really talk about it. So I don't think I don't hear a lot of opinions about this and what to share with you.
Well, I have an interesting question to ask you, because you are Gen Z, and this podcast has been going 5 years now. Vietnam has changed dramatically in 5 years. What is a younger, can't think how to grammatically say this correctly. See, even as a native speaker, I fuck up my grammar all the time, as my wife loves to point out, because her grammar is perfect. What is the opinion of younger people in Vietnam of foreigners in general and expats? And I don't mean backpackers, because there's many foreigners like me here in Vietnam who've been here for 8 years, 10 years, 15 years. They've come here for a job. They're not English teachers per se. Do young people in Vietnam even care? Do they have an opinion on that at all?
I don't think Gen Z, they really care about that much. I think they do actually enjoy having a friend. They enjoy the concept of having a friend from different countries, and they really enjoy speaking English as well. It's a chance for them to, when they have a friend which is from whatever countries you're from, but as long as you can help them to, practice English beside Vietnamese, you speak Vietnamese all the time, right? So yeah, that's all they care about. And if you're friendly, you be nice to them, and that's cool. That doesn't matter about the stereotype.
What my question, I guess, is they're not intrinsically impressed just because you're a foreigner. Because I feel like that's a trait that some people expect and think the Vietnamese people have. And again, we're making a massive overgeneralization, but like, oh, you're a foreigner. Oh, welcome to my country. I personally have never felt that. I mean, maybe just because I'm an old man and nobody gives a shit about me, but when I go to the shop or when we go to the gym or I walk about, I don't feel like I get any special treatment, special looks. I don't think that anyone looks upon me as being better because I'm foreign, but I feel like there are some foreigners that feel like they are looked upon better. And I don't know, is that true or is that not true? Or is it just them a feeling of misplaced superiority?
A couple of years ago, I do believe that, Western people, they put themselves up with other people.
You think they put themselves up?
I do think at that time that the Vietnamese people, when they talk to a Western, they have that admiration at a certain degrees. But then I think the more I grow up, the more I think that it's not. I think it's just my stereotype. I just put it in the others, so that's why I see it in that way. But now I just think it's just normal. People versus people, they just speak different language, and that's it.
So I have a question that goes in a bit of a different track. That there's another stereotype that I don't think applies to, for example, the building that we live in or the area that we live in. But there's another stereotype which I also hate. Well, I hate all stereotypes, but that foreigners here, especially Westerners, so Americans, British, Australians, they're here escaping something, or they're here to take advantage of the country or take advantage of the women, or they're here because they just want to get drunk and party and have fun and don't actually like contribute to like society. And again, I think, saying I hate stereotypes, there are some people that I do think that I know of that you could probably put in that box. Do Vietnamese people even think that at all, or is that just like a stereotype that's given to Westerners by other Westerners?
Good question. I heard some Vietnamese people, they tell me about that opinion as well. Something about, when you don't go to work at that country, and the government will supply for you a certain amount of money. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what they said to me. But they said a certain amount of money, and then those people will come to, some countries like Southeast Asia to just use that money, and then, just like basically retire. Is that true?
That's true. Not in Vietnam, because Vietnam doesn't have a retirement visa, but it is true that they'll either get government money or it will be their own money that they've saved up their whole life for retirement, and then move to a country like Vietnam or somewhere else in Southeast Asia to retire because it's less expensive. So that's common. And that can be problematic because it's another stereotype that there's many older Australians will come here and set up in Vung Tau and spend their pension money, and they're just living the life in Vung Tau, not really contributing to the country, and can be, again, I don't want to overgeneralize, but can be like pretty horrible people. That probably is not true. Maybe it will be true for like a couple of people, but that can happen. But again, so we keep going on about stereotypes, right? And every time we talk about a different stereotype, you're like, yeah, there's some people that are like that, but it doesn't apply to everyone, right? But moving on, so you lived in Da Nang until when?
I lived there for 10 years. So when I finished my high school, I go to University of Ho Chi Minh City when I was 19. And yeah, I studied and living there from Ho Chi Minh City from 19 up until now.
So as I mentioned, I keep saying Vietnam when I really mean Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, because I spent most of my time here. And it is the big city. So coming down here, 19 years old, you're brought up in Dak Lak, which is known as the coffee region, Mountainous region. Then grown up in Da Nang, which is a big city, but it's still quite small, quite regional. What was it like then coming to the big city?
Yeah, actually, again, I actually feel the same way as the first time I moved to Da Nang from Dak Lak. It feels very new to me. And yeah, one of the things is so interesting because I'm the only one in the families moved to Ho Chi Minh City to live and, study and live like this long. My parents always tell me that, you're the youngest child of the house and you're the most innocent child of the house. You know nothing. They say I know nothing about life experience, like zero. How can you end up in here and not losing your bike up to this point? They're kind of impressed, actually.
So they thought you were going to come to the big city and just like lose your mind, basically.
True. They're going to let loose, and I'm going to lose my bike very soon, and lose my phone is going to be snatched in the street.
And has any of that happened to you yet?
No, I don't think so.
So you have lost a bike?
I have lost a bike. And,
but anyway, you moved to Saigon, you finished a degree. Now this comes back to a question I was going to ask earlier about education, and incredible what your parents did for you and your brothers and your sisters, working so hard to give them that education, to make you the head snitch, which was, they must have been so proud of you to being like the head snitch. Massive, massive focus. Everyone knows it in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, on education. And it's, again, another stereotype, but it is true. I mean, around the world, every parent wants their child to do well, but there's a really huge focus in Asia. And it's so funny over the years talking to people. Everyone's parent wants them, right? Tell me if I'm incorrect. They want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Engineer is a big one. Accountant, teacher. Like it's one of those 5 jobs, right? And if it's not that, then you're massively failing. So what did your parents want you to be?
Doctor.
A doctor, right? There you go, right? So
Yeah, they want me to be a doctor, but not a real doctor though. It's like,
not a real doctor. What's that mean?
there's a guy who always, take an x-ray picture for you.
Yeah.
You want me to do in that position? You say he's stable though. He doesn't wrong. He's very stable. And I know there's some guy who opened a practice at outside the hospital, and he trying to basically he partner with a lot of practice outside, like partner with some dentists or some practice that they can do surgery at their homes. So when every time there's customers want to do some dentist stuff, they say, hey, go to do an x-ray. And then, it's just they're doing business there. It's just good. And I know his point, but it's just...
I'm just laughing so hard because it's such a random thing that your parents decided out of everything that, like, we want you to do x-rays. Like, that's the kind of we want you to be an x-ray doctor. Now, as people listening will know, you're not an x-ray doctor. What is your full-time job?
Right now, I'm a personal trainer.
As we've mentioned, that's what I've sort of alluded to. And anyone looking at me right now on the YouTube video, obviously, if you're listening, thank God you can't see me, because if you can see me on YouTube right now and you're watching me, it's not a good advert for you. They're like, holy shit, he looks terrible. No, I feel I'm 42. I've just done 42, and I feel as good as I've ever felt. And so, you're being a great personal trainer. But what my next question is, up until recently, what did your parents think you did?
They think I'm a translator in interior design company.
I didn't know there was that specific.
Okay, so
I didn't know the lie was so deep.
Yeah, I have to make it specific though, or it's not a lie. I say that.
And your parents won't listen to this, will they?
Yeah, that's right. They say that. Oh, interior design, and
I'm surprised you didn't say you were a translator for an X-ray doctor. That would have been the next best thing.
Could be a great idea, man. But yes, and I say them that I want those company they make so that can export it, which is something that internationally is gonna make them buy into it a little bit more so they can leave me alone.
Did you send them a website of a real company?
No,
you didn't go that far.
Yeah, that's right.
No, so what? So I mean, the reason is obvious, but why did you tell them that?
Yeah, it's because my family is a traditional family. Again, I'm really proud of my families, but they have a traditional mindset. Everything has to be in the straight line. They put me in this path. You just go right on that path. Don't go anywhere. And that's the safest route they can give me. Basically, they want me to just graduate university, and they're going to try to utilize whatever relationship that they got at that moment, and they will find me a very good, stable job. And yeah, I just don't want to do it though. I think it's the way that I see the life of, doing, 9 to 5 job in Vietnam. I have a brother. He live in Tân Bình district. Okay. He was 36 years old, and man, like he doesn't have time to take care of himself and take care of the kid. Cause right now he's overweight. Extremely overweight.
Which is not, I feel like you don't see many people in Vietnam that are overweight. Apparently obesity is becoming a bigger problem here. I'm going off track, but anyway, he's overweight.
That's right. And he's overweight. He doesn't have time to go to, doing the sport. He used to really like playing soccer, but 9 to 5 job, it's take all his energy away from him. And he had got 2 kids. And every time he finished the job, have to go right back to his home to take care of his kid. And he had dinner with his family, and then it's 9 p.m. and it's done. I don't want to live that life. It's not right or wrong, but it's just not fit for me. I think my brother can really happy with that life. I don't think it's just work for me though.
So how long after you graduated did you decide, what was your degree in?
Business administration.
So how long after your degree did you decide, I'm not going to do business administration and I want to be a personal trainer?
I think at that time I'm in the 3rd years. So we have 3.5 years to make sure that I can get the degrees. So at the starting of the 3rd year, I say like, I also learn a lot about business on YouTube as well. I don't learn nothing about university. But I say that, hey, I got, I know to do fitness, and I really have a huge passion about this. And how about I can sell this to people? That's it. Just like that. It's a business, actually. You give something that you
absolutely,
have.
Yeah, you definitely have to use a lot of business. You're running your own business. You're not just a personal trainer.
Exactly, though. So,
you don't work for like California Fitness, which is nothing wrong if you do, but you work for yourself.
That's right.
So I know that you recently told your parents the big reveal. How did you tell them that, and what was their reaction that you are not an x-ray doctor, that you are a personal trainer?
Okay, so there's two phrases when this happened. The first phrase, I talked to my mom with my sister first.
You need your sister as backup.
No. My sister is not on my side, though.
Oh, she's not on your side either?
No, yeah. So she's
like, they sent you to me when you were 8 years old. I brought you up, and now you're a personal trainer?
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of the same idea. That's very true. That's the same idea. So, yeah, my sister told me that, yeah, you have to go to that. After there's some graduations, and then we just sit at a hotel and then having dinners together. And then my sister just brought up stories. Hey, so here's the thing. You live in Saigon long enough. You experience enough. I think you're already done with the cities, right? And I think you should go to Da Nang, and then the whole families can gather there, and then my parents can retire there, and they can spend the rest of their life with their children and all that. It's beautiful, actually. I understand the ideas. But I was like, yep. I was just nodding. And just like, no. I don't want to, because I don't want to argue with her. And I just explained to her that, to be honest, I thought that if I were a personal trainer, I saying my income, they kind of impress. I thought that they will impress, because at that time, I think I make good money in terms of people at my age. And I think some people who work in an office job who was like 25, 27, even 30 years old, I still can make more money than them at that time. So I thought I can impress them by that. And I saying, yeah, to be honest, I'm a personal trainer. I'm trying to, my goal is to scale up to 10 trainers, and I can open up gyms. That's my vision.
It's amazing. Like, you're working for yourself. You have a vision. You have goals. You're making more money than other people your age, and doing, like, this should be amazing. I'm like already scared of the reaction, because I actually haven't heard what was the reaction. So what was the reaction to that?
Yeah, so I'm so passionate when I'm talking about it as well. I'm saying, yeah, it's just, you have to trust me with this one. I really, because I thought that plan's going to work. If you have a vision, and I have something to prove, which is I make money at that time as well, right? So then my sister said, so what's the point of going to the university? You have to utilize your degree in something. You have to utilize the knowledge that you have gained from your university, which is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then why don't you waste all my parents' money for, now you're gonna be a PT. You're gonna fix people forms. You're gonna just like be touchy with other people. But yeah, it just hurt me though. It hurt me at that time. I thought you were gonna be impressive.
Yeah. What's so funny as well, because my degree is in sports science, and I have never used it once. And most people do not use their degree. Is that something, another kind of cultural difference in Vietnam? Are you expected to use exactly what you study? Yeah, I thought so. Well, I hope that the reaction has been better than you told your mum, and then when you told your dad.
So when I see the first reactions, I was like, holy shit, I will never. And I talked to my brother. My brother is like my side man. And I talked to my brother right after I tell them, and my brother was like, holy shit, why would you tell them? It's too soon. I thought we have
10 trainers.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly the thing he's told me. He's like, you have to at least just have one trainer.
Keep lying until
at least just have one trainer to work for you, to be a business in their eyes. And now you just mess things up. My brother, he told me about this. He said that it was so close. He was this close to tell me that, hey, in the graduations, you don't tell them about your job. He's about to call me at that time, but then in the same day, same night, when I call him, I was like, oh shit, I wish I could talk to him sooner. And when he was too late, and he told me that, okay, so here's the deal. 100% my sister gonna tell my dad, for sure, because he's the head of the house. And you gonna lie to them no matter what. You have to say you changed your mind or anything. You maybe you didn't think right. Everything, you just make things up because you just want to stay in Saigon. You don't want to live in Da Nang, whatever. But don't tell them you are the trainer. So I was like, okay, yes sir. Lesson learned. So yeah, when I come back to, I think it's like a couple of months ago actually, and I come back to visit my families, and yeah, the day I was about to go back to Saigon, I thought I was get away, man. I didn't see my dad asking anything about my job and my intention in the futures. And my dad told me, hey, going up, about to tell you something. I'm like, oh shit. And I sitting down, my dad closed the room door, and he's sitting right in front of my face, and he was like, okay, so tell me, what you gonna do? You graduated, so what you gonna do? So I'm saying, yeah, I want to do multi-international companies. I'm trying to learn Chinese and Spanish just to, gain more experience. But even though I'm trying to learn Spanish, but in a different purpose, not for, learning, working for a company. And I'm trying to make it sounds good, And then after that, my dad told me, but I thought you want to be a personal trainer. And then, cause I heard your sister tell you about it last time with me. I was like, oh shit, okay. Okay. So I was like, okay, Dad, to be honest, I'm just make things up. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm just make things up. I just want to stay in Saigon. I love that city. So I don't want to live in Da Nang. I feel it's just fit with me, the energy and people there and place to go in there. It's just so amazing. I want to live in there a little bit more. That's why I make things up so that my sister, I thought that maybe if I lie, my sister can believe in me, so they will leave me to live in Saigon again. But yeah, I messed up, Dad. I'm sorry. I just want to work in a company. And yeah, that's how it is. And my dad was like, okay, come back to Da Nang. Just quit your job in that company. Just come back to Da Nang. I think it'd be better for you. Your parents gonna be retired, and they're all the same reason. And I was just there and I listening. I was just, acting like I'm listening. I'm absorbing everything. And at the end of the day, he said, yeah, what did you think? And I was like, I'm sorry, Dad, I think I have to stay in Saigon. I was like, okay. Okay, he's very cool, actually. He's very calm. He said, okay, that's your choice, right? And I was like, yes, Dad. Are you sure about that? I was like, yes, Dad. I was like, okay. Okay. That's it. You know what's lucky about it? Because my sister is not there. If my sister is there, everything gonna be like 100 times dramatic. So yeah, I thought I'm so glad that everything is just going very smooth. It's
That's
not
cool. I was waiting for the end because I didn't know. I was like, what's he going to say? I mean, it could have been so bad, right? So that's amazing. And you've got his support, it sounds like, in a way. And I'm excited to see how your business grows. And obviously, I've been a part of that for over a year now. He does fix my form a lot. That is part of your job. It's so funny. So just recently, like some days I don't work out with you, and I'd increased my bicep weight to like 22.5, and we'd been doing 17.5, and I was all proud of myself, and I was like texting him, I was like, I'm up to 22.5 now, like I'm feeling really strong, feeling really good. And then like the next week we worked out together, and I was like, showed him, put the weight on 22.5. Immediately he's like, put your arm back all the way out, come on, do this. Fixed my form right back down to 17.5.
Ego scratter. Oh, one thing
Ego was destroyed.
One thing I forgot to tell you, that my mom reaction as well at the first phrase, when she just sit right next to my sister at that time, and my mom first reaction was like, oh, so are you gonna be it's like a whore. It's like a whore job, because you like a sugar baby. People are gonna pay you money, and
I might make more money doing that.
Yeah, but it's true.
Well, Thinh, thank you so much for being on this episode of Vietnam Podcast. I'm so excited to share your story. If you are looking for a personal trainer in Saigon, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with Thinh. He's been awesome, and I can't give him a big enough recommendation. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of a Vietnam Podcast. I can't believe this is now season 11. Keep on listening. Join the community. Go to the show notes. Go to patreon.com/a Vietnam Podcast. Become part of the Vietnam Podcast community. You can be a Bop Sao Dare. You can join for free. You can start at $1 a month. It doesn't really matter. I just want to build a community on there. So please do that. And thank you again for listening. Make sure wherever you are, whatever app you're listening from, subscribe, follow, turn on all the notifications. And the best thing that you can do is share this episode with someone else. And also, I love it when people get in touch. So drop me an email or a message. So Thinh, thank you very much for being on a Vietnam Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Cheers.